About 71% of the Earth's surface is water covered, and the oceans hold about 96.5% of all Earth's water. The human body is made up of between 50 and 75% of water. This is Living in Liquid, and I'm Jamie Mitchell.
So today's guest isn't just an athlete, she's a true maverick. Elina Mäkinen is one of the world's most accomplished ice swimmers, pushing the boundaries of what the human body and mind can endure in sub-zero water. With nothing but a swimsuit, goggles, and an iron will, she plunges into frozen lakes and swims distances that would send most of us into shock within seconds. But what drives someone to seek out the cold, not once, but over and over again? In this episode, we dive deep with Alina into the psychology, the danger, and the beauty of a sport that flirts with the edge of human survival and pushes the limit of the human body. That sounds sort of crazy.
Yeah. I'm listening for it myself, like, whoa.
Welcome, Alina. It's a pleasure to have you on, and I'm excited because it's just something that's so foreign to me. And although in honor of this podcast, I just did an ice bath. I have one at my house. I have a sauna and a cold plunge. So I usually do that myself most days and nights. And so I just jumped out of the ice plunge. So I'm feeling chilly.
Yeah, the small plunges are the best ones, and those are the best energizing ways to do cold bathing.
Yeah. Mine gets pretty cold. I think it gets to like 37, around about 37 degrees Fahrenheit, which is I'm not like I mean, I gotta crack the ice like with a hammer, like it'll completely freeze up, and it's chilly. I think it's like maybe 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, so it's pretty cold.
Yeah, that's already quite effective.
It's amazing. I mean, I know there's a lot of benefits to this whole cold plunging and the cold stuff, but just without knowing all that stuff, for me, it's just the way it makes me feel. It just there's just something about it that's incredible.
Yeah, indeed. It's mostly about you have to be really present in order to tolerate the cold. So all the nerves are being present, and you have to be in focus. And so it's fascinating in many ways.
Many ways. Well, I'd like to take it all the way back to your childhood, growing up, and just what was it like growing up in Finland and as a kid, and just take us back to those early years.
Yeah, so I'm born in Finland, and I'm born in December, so I'm sort of a winter child. And in Finland, it's actually typical that kids or babies nap outdoors. So I've been sleeping outdoors already in frozen temperatures. I think the minimum temperature where it's allowed, it's minus 10 Celsius degrees. And it's just breathing fresh air and getting used to cold and having good naps. So that's why I say I have been breathing cold air since a baby. But I was 5 years old when I tried my very first ice bath. And of course, when you're a 5-year-old kid, so it was more for the adrenaline rush and kind of being brave and jumping in. And I was with my grandfather, and he was like, "Okay, go in slowly, and you can just dip your toes." But I was the one going full in and swimming on the other edge of the swimming pool and coming back and just feeling like the best feeling from the eyes when you have the full energy, you get the adrenaline rush and endorphin rush, and it's actually one of my very first childhood memories as well. But then I was 18 when I actually started doing a regular ice bathing. So before that, I was a competitive pool swimmer, but sort of average pool swimmer. I didn't do any records or any Finnish championships, but kind of I enjoyed it and I trained really hard. And when I turned 18, I found the open water swimming and ice bathing. And ice bathing was more for stress relief. So first, just sitting in sauna and enjoying the kind of hot cold treatment and enjoying sauna conversations. The Finnish sauna culture is quite relaxing, and it's an own concept itself. But
Yeah,
then small things roll on.
yeah, I was about to say, because it's for us it seems like this really new thing, the hot cold plunge and everything, but it must be just part of your culture. And like you said, like growing up, is that normal for like kids to sleep outside? Is that like a culture not just in Finland but all the Scandinavian countries? Is that something that's normal for you guys?
Yes, it's quite normal, and it's really safe outdoors in Scandinavian countries. So it's quite typical. Of course, there might be less if you're living in the city center, but when you're from countryside, so that's quite normal thing here.
And is there like some sort of like a study they did that said, hey, this is going to be a lot better for kids if they sleep outside? I mean, I could imagine over here they'd be like, you can't do that. Like your kid will get a cold, all that sort of stuff. But it seems completely different in Europe.
Yeah, I think that's more kind of coming over from generations, and also noticing that the babies sleep better when they are outdoors. And but of course the babies are dressed well, and we have really good instructions on how to do it safely, and also some kind of radio phones next to the baby, so it's still taken care, so no one is left alone outdoors.
And then, like you said, that at 5 years old, you did your first ice plunge or cold plunge. And then is that something that most families are doing with their children? Like, is it just like a standard sort of cultural thing that everyone does at that age?
There's no age limit, but I think majority have tried ice bathing when they were a kid. Quite many Finnish people have a summer cottage that they also use during winter time. So in winter time, it's really popular to do an own ice bathing hole to the lake when it's frozen. And but yeah, I think the age range is quite large, so it depends a lot on the family and their hobbies, and also the personalities of the kids. So some kids are just more driving for adventures and going in really young, while for example, my little sister is more shy, so I think she was closer to 8 or 10 when she did her first ice baths.
Because I imagine in the middle of winter, it's completely iced over, right? So is that you've got to go out and learn how to cut the ice, and is that part of it as well, learning how to cut the ice, and how does that even work? You walk out, there's a frozen lake, and how do we get to jumping into the ice?
Yeah, that's actually a funny thing that you need actually quite heavy tools for cutting the ice, but majority of Finnish people own those tools. So basically you need a drill so that you can drill a small hole to ice. That's used also for ice fishing. So that's why many people have them at their home just in case. And so you drill an ice hole, and then there's a proper long ice saw that you use to cut the ice hole. Some people also use motor saw, and if you don't have any saw, so you can also use an axe, but it takes quite many hours, or depending on what's the thickness of the ice. In the beginning of winter, the ice might be from 1 centimeter to 5 centimeters, so it's fairly quick to cut with an axe. But after that, if it's later winter, for example, I live in Lapland in the northern part of Finland, so the thickest ice has been 90 centimeters. So It takes quite a while to cut ice hole to that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's also a beautiful kind of routine to do. So when I was a kid, I remember it took like the whole day when we were doing an ice hole, and it was a big adventure when we were trying to cut it. So it's not like something you do in just 15 minutes. It can be a whole day activity, or even 2 days.
Yeah, it's like a ritual.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what this might sound like a silly question, but if the ice is frozen over on lakes, that the water temperature, can the water be like colder, like when it's frozen over, or is it just the same temperature, like no matter where you went and cut a hole in a bunch of ice, or can the temperatures vary in the water?
The temperatures vary quite a lot, and it depends, of course, on how shallow it is, because the bottom of the lake can keep the water a bit warmer. If it has a frozen cover, so usually it is quite close to 1 Celsius degree. But if it's extremely cold outdoors, if it's deep, the water can get very close to 0 Celsius degrees, but it rarely gets below zero because, of course, then it would be solid ice. But if it's salty water or very, very clear, clean water, or if it's a river, so the water is moving, that's when the water can get also below 0 Celsius degrees. But that's
Yeah.
quite rare and extreme. So usually it ranges from 0.2 to somewhere between 2 degrees.
And what are the depths of these lakes or rivers? Like when you go and like, what would be the depth from when you jump in, like to the bottom in some of these lakes?
I usually like to cut my ice hole somewhere where I can stand in the bottom, because it's just easier to go to the ice hole and push yourself up from there, or if you want ladders or something else. So that's more it's easier to do. But there are quite many lakes that are 30 meters deep or deeper. So then you just don't know what's underneath. There might be quite many fishes swimming there around. But it depends quite a lot. But it's quite the same as kind of any safety when you're doing open water swimming or any swimming. So you have to think about the safety. So the closer you are to the shore, so the more safe it is if something happens. So that's why most of the ice holes are done close to kind of shore or harbor, or where you have ladders, or where it is easy to get out if you get stairs to the water or something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So when, as a kid, you said 5 was your first time. Then take me through. You said you started to like just swim competitively, like in a swimming pool sort of background. What ages was that, and how, where did that take you, like through school into high school?
I never really stopped swimming because I went to baby swimming, like when you're 4 months old, you have the baby swimming school, and I just continued all the different schools, swimming schools, and I just continued it. And it's odd because no one of my family, like my parents or my grandparents have never done anything related to water or swimming. So I think water was kind of element for me where I can feel free and float, and I really enjoyed. I was also doing diving and other water related sports when I was a kid. So yeah, I got hooked at it, and I did compete in long distances, so quite a lot, like 400 meters medley or 200-meter medley. So the long distances where you need to train quite a lot. So the training hours were long and heavy. But there's a different state of mind when you're in the pool and repeating the laps over and over again.
So was there a certain time in your life when you realized that, you just really, really love the cold and you could handle that discomfort and the pain that I guess comes with the cold exposure? And how did that come about? When was that moment that you're like, you know what, this is something that I really, really like am good at, or I really, really enjoy? Is there a certain moment in time that really clicked in that you can remember?
I've been always a kind of hard worker and slow learner. And I think that's really good in ice, because in ice there's no short ways. You just have to get used to it progressively and slowly. And because when I started it, I went every day for a really short time, and I took baby steps in the beginning. So that really helped me when I noticed, okay, well, I have increased my cold tolerance quite a lot. What do I need to do to actually get to the next level? But I had built sort of accidentally a really good base for the cold tolerance because I was really consistent and doing it progressively and slowly. And then I kind of had the way to relax in the cold and be patient, because you need some sort of patience, because it's not only about being in ice cold water, it's about what happens when you get out, because you have to have patience to recover safely. So I usually sat down in a warm room for half an hour before going in sauna or anywhere. I didn't have any hurry. So that really helped me, or when I was learning my body how to recover from cold, how to shiver. And it was more that I didn't push myself too much in the beginning. Of course, when I saw people doing 500-meter and kilometer distances, and I decided, okay, that's my target. I want to do long distances. So there was a moment when I started overtraining and doing too much. But that was only after I already had some base. So I wasn't jumping to completely kind of empty spots. So I sort of knew what I was doing, but then every time when you have a bit competitive mind and you have the goals, so also I did some mistakes with the kind of not overtraining but pushing too much.
Did you have some sort of mentor or a coach or someone that you looked up to, like in the world that you lived in, like that, or was there and then someone that helped you along the way before you got to that point?
Finland has quite a long history with festival type of ice swimming. So 25 meters, it's a really short distance. It's you wear funny hats and you have fun. And kind of extreme 1 kilometer, 500 meters, there was like no one did those in Finland. I met one Finnish guy who had done it, and he said immediately to me, like, you can't do it. You're too small. You're a girl. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And you will just hurt yourself. But I sort of understand it as well, because it was in 2014, 15. So all the long distances and ice swimming culture for the extreme ones was still like developing, and it was new. There's no research about what's actually happening. So people were kind of just from mouth to mouth telling stories for each other. So there wasn't any concrete safety rules or stuff like that. When I went abroad for some competitions, I also met other people that were doing long distances, like Henri Kaarma from Estonia, and some Irish people that were actually swimming quite a lot, the extreme distances. And they were also giving me some feedback and reflecting their experiences. And that was really helpful when I finally had other people that were training for the extreme distances. And suddenly it was not only the Finnish people telling me it's too dangerous, but there was other people who are actually doing it and discovering what happens to body during hypothermia, and sharing their knowledge. So it was really important also in the beginning, so that I have courage to actually trust that I can do the extreme swims as well.
Yeah, and so take me through the, I guess, contests, or the it's called extreme distance, but most people listening would think an extreme distance is a super long endurance event, but in the cold it can, I'm sure it's a very, very short time because of how dangerous it is to the cold exposure. So can you take us through from the shortest one to the longest one, and what those races or those distances look like?
Yeah, like 25 meter is the shortest one. So they actually cut a real ice pool to the ice. And 25 meters is something that majority of people who have ever done any kind of cold showers or ice bath, they should be able to survive it if they're healthy, because you have the endorphin rush, you have the adrenaline, and you can push through 25 meter. That's usually 15 seconds, 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. So it's quite short distance. But when you go any further from that, that's when the cold will impact your muscles. That's when it will hit your technique. And the less experience you are in cold, the more the cold will impact on how your body works in water. So, and it's actually quite interesting to see that there is already quite big difference in 50 meters, which is 40 to 1 minute. So the swimming gets slower because usually it breaks your technique. And when the cold hits, you can't really do the strokes like in warm pool. But of course, if you are used to cold and you do regular cold training, you also know how to do the strokes so that the cold won't impact, and you can maintain the warm a bit better. Extreme distances, I would say it's 450 meters, so 500 meters or longer, because 500 meters is usually more than 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is already a time where you have heat loss and you have to actually know what you're doing. But I think they kind of the distance that they have like ice swimming association that is doing all the regulations and competitions around ice swimming. So their kind of key distance is 1 kilometer, which is 15 minutes. That starts already being like in all the measurements. Usually hypothermia tests are 12 minutes. So 1 kilometer is already like exceeding the normal hypothermia test, where you have to be able to maintain focus and maintain your movements in order to swim fast. It's not only about the swimming, but it's also on how to recover after, because you can't really jump straight into an ice bath from hot tube or sauna. You have to actually be able to recover from the 15 minutes. Our body temperature won't be below 35 degrees, which is the real limit for hypothermia. But we will have cold blood and warm blood mixed around our body, and that's what makes it dangerous, because the blood circulation will work differently. I think nowadays, when we have quite many pro swimmers, so it's actually quite interesting how fast they can swim. There's not that much difference between open kind of warm pool and cold pool. And for people not doing ice swimming, they can think like, there's no difference on swimming in cold or warm, because the pro swimmers can make it look so easily.
Well, they're so cold. They want to get to the end of the race so fast that they're going to swim as fast as they can.
Yeah,
I got a question. Is there any rules? Like, for me, I would think I'd want to swim with my head out of the water. But is there any rules in those races? You have to swim like face in the water, or take me through that.
Yeah, it's actually funny because the really original rule, like 40, 30 years ago when the winter swimming started. So it was that you can't put your head in the water. So breaststroke was swim like head up, because the head is actually, if you put your face in the water, you get a diver's response. And that's a kind of mixed signal. So in cold, the diver's response can be quite dangerous. But when we are doing 1 kilometer, it's usually freestyle, because freestyle is the fastest way to swim. So you have your face in the water, head in the water, and the rule is that you can have only one cap, goggles, and like normal swimsuit, like all the same FINA swimsuit that they are used in pool swimming are also used in ice swimming. But you can't use any neoprene or any kind of equipment to help you with the cold.
Yeah, no full body suits, nothing like that.
No.
It's got to be bare skin. And so, and what's the what is the training like? Take me through. You were mentioning before about overtraining and stuff like that, but I mean, there must be such a fine line of how much you can expose yourself and then the recovery to be able to do it again. Say you have a contest like coming up, a 1 mile contest, like lead me up like the month or so before that. What does a week look like training for some like extreme kilometer race like that?
I will take you a bit further than 1 month, because usually the cold training starts in autumn when the weather gets chillier, because then it's easier to maintain long distances but not to have too heavy kind of cold exposure time. So usually I do swimming all year around, but in autumn I'm trying to keep, let's say, 10 minutes in cold water, and then the water temperature progressively decreases. So I get used to cold slowly but progressively, but I can keep the long 10-minute time in the cold water. There's a time when the water temperature drops suddenly from 10 degrees to close to 2 degrees, 1 degree. And that's the time when I can't keep doing the 10 minutes every day. I have to keep doing regularly, but do only once a week or once in 2 weeks, a bit longer exposure. Usually I say a longer exposure is 8 minutes or more. That's my own individual time. I think that will vary about the people in question, because it's really individual how much we can tolerate cold. I noticed that for me it's more important to go in ice bath every day for a short 1 minute, 2 minute distance, and then it's fine to do a longer swim every 1 or 2 weeks.
Wow, and takes that long to recover. I was about to say, like, it's compared to swimming, like, I swim my whole life as well, right? So, like, you go and swim 5 or 6 kilometers and you bang it out really hard, and, you can go the next day and swim 5 or 6 kilometers, no problem. You might be a little sore, but it's no problem. You can do that every day. But the recovery and the damage or must do to the body and your internal organs and stuff, I guess you have to be so in tune with that to not to overdo it. Like, how do you keep that in check? And I guess that's what you were saying earlier about overtraining, right? Is that's a real problem if you're overtraining?
Yeah, because it's really hard to remember that, because ice bathing is usually think it's relaxing and you do it for relaxing. So, and if you're 10 minutes, so you think it's only 10-minute training, but it's actually several hours training, because after 10 minutes in ice bath, I can be shivering. So my body is creating warmth by small muscle shivering for 20 minutes. And 15 minutes of shivering for the muscles, it's almost like 1 hour at the gym, because the muscles are really working.
Contracting.
Yeah. I started to journal how I'm feeling. So if I was exhausted or tired, I noticed I'm pushing too much. So it's more on trying to reflect every time you're feeling after the ice bath and before the ice bath, because it's really hard, because you can't really measure your exercises like in warm swimming pool. It's easy to see, okay, this type of training I can do every day, and this is how I recover. Of course, the same applies for cold swimming. You can notice your morning heart rate or when you're going to sleep. So how fast your heart rate is back to normal. But it's quite a lot on knowing the cold symptoms you have, because then you pay attention more. Okay, I get quite strange symptoms. Something is not okay, or today is a good day. Like I have good energy levels, and I have capacity to do both the cold training but the recovery process as well. So of course, when I was doing pool swimming, I had a coach, so that helped quite a lot, because the coach was also tailoring the training. And when I changed to cold swimming, I had my coach in the pool, but I had to be the first time my own coach and actually paying attention on the recovery and the amount of training I'm doing. And some overtraining, of course, I can see if I'm fatigued but there are also some symptoms that are only on long term, like I can see them in 1 month. So that's why it's crucial to be really careful with the overtraining, and because it's really hard to recover if you're pushing too long.
Do you have to have regular checkups and stuff like that? Is that something that's that most of you athletes that do this type of sport, like
Yeah.
it's
For competitions, you have to have like ECG, so basic heart condition. It's done every 6 months. And of course, if you want, you can do also check-ins by yourself earlier or more regularly. So I have done a few times ECG with an exercise.
Yeah.
Because I think that also gives more information rather than the kind of recovery EKG where you only see if you have any born diseases or any serious diseases. But I'm also following kind of the long-term health health figures, and I have Aura, so I have like data for long-term for my sleeping, and that's really helpful for like all life aspects as well, because
Yeah.
it's quite often like everything else impacts as well. So if you have stress at work or if you have hectic life, anything happening, so all those take quite a lot capacity. And when you're going to cold, even though you would be in really good physical conditions, but if you have too much things in your head, that can impact a lot in the cold tolerance in the moment when you're in cold.
Yeah. So take me through one of these competitions. I guess they are like what does a competition look like? When they say this is where it's going to be, this is the time. Like how is it structured? Who's the winner? How does it all play out? Like for everyone that's listening, how does a contest work like that for you guys?
Yeah, 1 kilometers competitions are, you have to pass shorter distances before being allowed to participate in 1 kilometer distances, because that's also how to show that I have been training progressively and I have been competing also first in shorter distances. There is both country and time limits for example, world championships. In competitions, it's quite the same as in pool, but every swimmer has their own second. So second is also responsible on communicating with the swimmer that everything is okay, and they know what kind of recovery is kind of needed. And they are kind of one, not judge, but they can also say to swimmer, okay, you have to cut off, you can't be swimming the full distance, because they have the key responsibility on paying attention on the swimmer.
It's like
Then
safety.
we have, yeah, they are basically safety. And then we have also the judge who is watching all the swimmers. And there are some rules, for example, how much you can lose your time. So if you start really fast with 50 meter and the next 50 meter is 3 times slower, so that's a big signal that everything is not okay. You're losing too much speed, you're too cold. So that kind of the key judge has a responsibility on checking the kind of progress of the swimmers and checking that everything is okay. Then there are also divers. They are in the water and they are ready to dive in. Would there be any kind of situations? It's not very often, but in my very first competitions, there was a girl who fainted after first 100 meters. And that was quite scary because you have to start keep swimming and you're worried about your friend next to you. Also, if something happens in cold water, it's really careful how to take them out so that you're not doing any more damage to a person. But if everything goes well, and usually everything goes well because people have been training a lot and they know what they're doing, so it's like a normal swimming competitions, except we don't jump in. We get instructions to go in the water, and then we start from the water and we do tumble turns. It depends on the amount of competitors, but usually it's heat winners. In 1 kilometer, there is also finals. So there's also one hit for the winners.
Without the kilometer race, is that they cut out a like 25-meter, like a lap 25-meter pool, and they're basically cutting out a swimming pool. How many lanes would there be? Like, and how many like swimmers in one race would it be?
It used to be about 6 swimmers,
Mm.
but they have increased it now, and they have competitions in normal pools that are outdoor pools, and those competitions can also be in 50-meter pools. But the very original pools were cut directly to ice, and it was 25 meters, and there was even the pool lanes. And 6 was mostly because it's easier to watch out for 6 people.
The safety.
But of course, now when we have more data, we have more experience, the competitions are run regularly. So there are 8 people, 10 people swimming, and we have bigger pools, and we have 50-meter pools. And sometimes there is also even open water 1 kilometer. So it's just an buoy that you have to circulate. So
Is there a temperature that it has to be under?
we say that 5 Celsius degrees is the limit. But they are also measuring, because of course it's a bit different to swim in 1 degree and 5 degree.
Huge
because
difference.
the heat loss is huge the colder the water gets. So they are making difference between below 1 degree and 0 Celsius degree water temperatures, for
And-
example, for records or anything like that.
And what's the ratio of men and women? Like, is there a lot of girls and women in these races? Like, are they getting into it?
There are more, but definitely when I started in 2015, there was a lot more men. I think they had the advantage of kind of courage to push in the cold water, but nowadays, no, it's not 50-50, but it's closer to that. And
Are you
we have
finding
a
that?
lot,
Are you finding, like, with TikTok and Instagram and being able to put that out there, that you're able to expose the sport, promote it, and maybe have more girls come and try it out?
I think it's a balance between like pool swimmers, open swimmers. They get interested on how it impacts when you have to have the mental capacity to swim in cold water. And that's also a fascinating way to continue swimming. So we have more people with swimming background coming to the sport. And it's also makes it more interesting because it's actually very fast times nowadays that are swum in the competitions. But I would say it's more the open water swimmers that are interested in swimming in 0-degree water. And it helps a lot if you want to do channel swimming or extreme long swimming. So the cold capacity that you can train and build in ice will take you really far for channel swimming.
And what about? I mean, I love the mental aspect is obviously probably the most important aspect of what you guys and girls do. Like, take me through. Do you do any specific, mental training, or is it just is there a routine that you go through before you're about to jump in that ice? Because it's I got to think that there's always a bunch of good swimmers, right? Anyone can jump in a pool and swim, but to jump in that freezing cold water, there's got to be something up here that separates separates a lot of the people that really want to do it, and the people that are just dipping their toes in and trying to do it.
At least for me, the most important message was to understand that in cold, I'm competing only against myself.
Yes.
So even though we are people next to each other and it's a competition against the time, so understanding that this is my competition and I'm only competing with myself, because also when you're doing extreme, so for the safety, you don't want to push because someone else is pushing. You need to understand your own capacity and know what's your own limits currently. Of course, it helps sometimes when you have someone to cheer for you and so on, but it's more challenge in your own head. And somehow after accepting that, it also unlocks the kind of it relaxes a bit, and then you are in control of the cold and you're in control of your own swims. But I didn't do much like mental training as such, but every time I'm in the cold water when I'm training, so I'm doing the same methods and same things that I would do in competitions. So basically, I have automated processes. I have almost like habits. I know what to do in cold, and when the cold is impacting my brain, I can automate all my moves. I know what's happening, so it's not impacting my swimming, because I do it every day in my every training. And also the recovery process, I try to keep it as similar as it is in competitions or when doing any else extreme swims or baths.
The way that you breathe, the way that you jump in the water, and obviously you're shocked, and first thing is to like panic and freak out. But is there, do you have any breathing techniques? Is there stuff that you're able to do that somehow makes you, I guess, warmer before you jump in, so you can stay warmer for longer before you get to that hypothermic stage? Like, is there any, like, is it things that you guys have come up with that you're able to do that help you in that way, or is it just pure toughen it out?
There is a lot breathing techniques, and basically where you need the breathing techniques is in the beginning before going in cold water to reduce the cold shock. That's like the first that everyone can practice when doing ice baths. What I do is mostly that I relax. So I usually breathe 3 times really slowly using all my lung capacity and relax. And when going to cold water, I have long out breaths because those calm down, those decrease heart rate. And then there's the time when you're spending 4 minutes, 5 minutes or more in cold water, where breathing can help to warm out. But in competitive swimming, I think there's a bit less what you can do with breathing, because it's more about the moving and creating warm with the moving, and that kind of trying to find the good balance between not being too exhausted, because if you are being fatigued, the cold will hit you. So for long distances, it's not about being as fast as possible, but it's being as sustainable as possible, because that's when you have the correct balance for tolerating cold and maintaining enough power to keep continuing with the specific speed. I haven't done much the Wim Hof or the breathing exercises, but there is a lot development in those areas. They are probably more used when you're staying still, because there you can focus on the breathing. But of course, in recovery pace, I have seen many swimmers using different kind of breathing methods, but it's mostly everyone should find their own individual way how to tolerate the cold and how to recover from the cold, and then repeat, create the routines, create the habits, so that you can do those also when in hypothermic conditions.
When I swim bilateral. I swim every 3 and 5 strokes. How do you swim when you're swimming those kilometer races? Like, are you swimming breathing every stroke, breathing every 3 strokes? How are you doing that, or what's the normal sort of breathing rate for people that are swimming? Because I imagine keeping your head in the water longer, you get colder faster. So what are those breathing rates that you use while you're swimming?
There are as many ways as there are swimmers. So like in pool swimming, there are different techniques. Some people breathe with every stroke, some people breathe with third stroke, and that's what would be the normal swimming in pool. So actually there's not much changes to pool swimming technique and ice swimming technique, and the only change is more like when the cold hits your arms, you have to maintain the stroke as it is. And for example, I've been swimming also 1 mile. It's not a competition because 1 mile is swimming alone and you're just competing yourself. And in 1 mile, after like 20 minutes, the brain starts to lose the focus on where to breathe. And it's really easy to get the feeling of that I'm swallowing water, I'm drowning. But that's your brain that doesn't know where to breathe. So I had to be thinking that I have to breathe from the sky. Because when I was thinking I will breathe from the sky, I managed to get my mouth just up from the water. Not from the sky, but just so that I'm not swallowing water. So it's just like a kind of battle between brain and that your muscles are slow. So when my brain thinks, okay, I'm breathing out from the sky, so my muscles work just in the middle.
Just enough.
Yeah, just enough. And kind of understanding that concept that when your brain are slow and when the cold hits the brain, so how to keep swimming and what to do so that you can get the correct technique maintained. So sometimes I describe to people like it's like being drunk and you have to walk straight. So you have to be really focused on something so that you can keep going.
You know, you have these races, the 25, the 50, the 400, and the kilometer. Is the future where people are just trying to push how far as possible as a distance? You know, is that something that's already, you know, you said you are playing around with the mile, which is 1.6 kilometers. These things of like, I'm going to try for 2 kilometers, I'm going to try for 3 kilometers. Is that where you see maybe the sport progressing to, where it's just people are just going to continue to push how far you can go?
That was already in 2015. So already in 10 years ago, when they developed or started doing the 1 kilometer competitions, there was people who wanted to do records on the furthest distance in 0-degree water. And I guess that's something we can't avoid. There are always people who want to break records, and when sport is developing, so of course every year someone breaks a record and wants to push further and further. I'm not hoping that kind of, because I think
Dangerous?
it's more important. It's dangerous, and there's always the limit where we forget what's the kind of reason why we are doing the sport. And if we're just pushing the records without thinking the causes or the dangers, because some of the heart diseases can be hidden so that you only see them in 5 years. And there is really a limited amount of research on how the extreme distances impact to our health. Of course, that applies for every sport. Running marathon every week, it might not be healthy. Every time when you go to ultra sports, extreme sports, so there comes the fine line when people are over pushing and they are not training that much, but because everyone else is doing something, so you kind of want to hit the tip of iceberg immediately without seeing all the work. But of course that comes with every sport, so you can't really do anything for that. But as long as safety is kept in mind and some kind of carefulness, so let's see how it goes. For me, I haven't been that fascinated in doing longer records or pushing myself more. In 2020, I did an ice mile in Svalbard where the water was minus 0.8 Celsius degrees. Which is also the coldest ice mile that has been swum by a woman. because it's really rare that the water gets that cold.
Mm.
Um, and I know that I could have capacity to do longer, but for me, I think I have found the way to enjoy the nature and to kind of find the balance between respecting the nature. So instead, I'm finding more passion on being able to swim somewhere where no one else can swim because it's really hard to get to a place, or kind of find some other aspects with the capacity, with the cold capacity.
Yeah, I mean, because you're right on the edge, right? You guys are swimming right on the edge of nearly death at sometimes, it seems. What is it that keeps you in this? Is it that adrenaline, that addiction? Is it the addiction of the feeling? What is it that just keeps driving you back to do this?
Cold is always cold, and I think that's what keeps me going. It doesn't get much easier. I think I have the same battle with the cold every time. And that's what fascinates me. It's nature, and that's something we can't control. And that's why I want to control it. So chasing, chasing for that every time.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, and I thought when I first started to ice bath as well that it would somehow get easier, but it just doesn't. It's just every time you go to jump in, it's
Yeah,
that mental battle of you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, right? It's like, and I think
exactly.
that's the beauty of it, and that's um the real mental challenge is to when you wake up and you know that that's what's in front of you for the day, and you know how hard it is, you know
Mm-hmm.
how much you're going to suffer, but you're still going to jump in and do
Do
it to
it.
yourself. You know,
Exactly.
it's a bit of a sickness with people that do that, I think. So,
Yeah,
uh,
but that's also kind of the way on like getting out of comfort zone and not getting too comfortable.
yeah. And then, so what's next? What is next for you? You have any competitions coming up, or so what? Any big goals? I guess you call them adventure swims. You're starting to talk to like when we go with surfing, we try and go to these new places where no one's surfed before and find these new places to travel. Like, sounds like that might be something that you're leaning into.
Yeah, definitely. I have been training for 4 years now, free skiing and ice climbing, and learning alpine sports, because that's what I want to combine. I'm trying to combine the ice climbing with ice swimming. So go to a place where you have to down climb um, to crevasse or anywhere where you have water somewhere where it's really hard to get. And it's not only the ice swim down there, but it's the way how you have to get in and get out safely. So combining the adventure of finding beautiful ice swimming spots, but also on how to get there. I've done a few swims in an icy waterfall, and those have been amazing. Then I'm still looking on the map for more beautiful places where to go.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I wanted to ask you about some of the scariest moments that you've had in the water and the ice. You know, has there been any moments that have really like been a close call? You know, to being something really serious.
I'm being quite careful, but there have been in the very beginning, I used to tie myself to ladders because I didn't want to be swimming around the ice hole. It was quite small, so I had tied up myself in a rope. And it was minus 20 Celsius degrees, and I was swimming for 8 minutes. And I got out and realized my rope is frozen. I couldn't open it anymore. I was alone. I didn't have anything to cut the rope with, and there was a minute where I was just trying to figure out the plan B, how to get out, because I couldn't, like, panicking doesn't help in that situation. Luckily, I could somehow get myself out from the belt, and I left the rope there and went to warm up, and only after I was warm up. So that's also when I kind of admitted that the friend is your best safety, so I shouldn't be doing that much swimming alone. And also on thinking that if I'm doing long distance, I have to count enough capacity for any surprises, what happens after. When I was training for my 0 ice mile, I had very, very bad frost bites, and I had to be really careful with my fingers. It was winter when there was minus 30 degrees for several days, and by just touching the ice, your skin freezes in the ice. So, and that's something you might not notice at the time, but afterwards it's really painful. And yeah, it also stopped me that we can't beat the cold. Like, it's just also a fact on the human body, how much we have water in our body, and how easily we'd get frostbites. So kind of also not scared me up, but made me way more careful with the extreme temperatures.
Learn a very, very important learning lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say has been your most memorable moment, like in the water so far?
So many of them, but I think I'm quite hooked on the finding the ice spots. About 8 years ago, we were doing a 10-kilometer hike, and there was a waterfall and a river, and that was extremely beautiful spot. And I decided I want to go to swim in the water. It was a river, so I knew that the ice won't be thick enough to carry me. So there will be a point when I will fall through the ice, and then I just have to continue so that I can get down to the river. And kind of figuring out the risks and then being able to do the plan. So I think that was kind of the problem solving, and the way how I could show myself like that I knew what can happen and when it happened. So I basically started walking on the ice. I fell through the ice. There was still 20 meters to go. I had to get myself up the air and roll on top of the ice to get to swim. So that was also kind of memorable moment, because then it's like the balance where you respect and you know what could happen and you're prepared, and then you can actually do the actions in a safe way. So I think in addition to being the most beautiful spot where I've been swimming, it was also the whole process on how I could go there safely and get up and then walk 10 kilometers home. Because if something would have happened, I would have been surprised about falling in this ice. So the story would have been a bit different as well.
Yeah, it freaks me out thinking of being under that ice. I've seen some footage of these contests where they swim under the ice. I mean, that's just another whole level of like not only being in the freezing cold, but being trapped underwater with ice. It's crazy. Have you done any of that sort of stuff, or you've just kept to the top?
I've done ice free diving as well, and that's completely own sport. I haven't done long distances or depth diving. I'm more on going under the ice and being there for, let's say, 1 minute at maximum underneath, and being just amazed because it's extremely beautiful down there. And basically, when you have solid ice, there's an ice hole cut, and the light comes through the ice hole. So if you dive deep, you can see the sunbeams coming through the ice hole, and that's extremely beautiful. I think every single time I have been doing under ice free diving, it's completely different. It depends on the thickness of the ice, how much snow is there on the top of the ice, how deep is it, what's the color of the water, is it clear, is there any bottom, or it's a big adventure every time with the under ice spray diving.
Is there anything swimming under there that's scary or anything? Like, is there anything dangerous that's under the ice that we don't know about? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's some types of fish and stuff, but is there anything else? I mean, it sounds like a silly question, but it's dangerous enough as it is, let alone without anything under there.
Luckily in Finland, there's not many dangerous fish in the water, and ice freediving is usually done in quarries. So basically, because there's more clear water and it's deeper, and there's no living animals either. But it comes then with the safety. So you have to have freediver watching over you, and safety line, lanyard, some kind of freediving experience. Of course, I'm diving currently with quite experienced divers, so there comes the moment when we don't use safety lanyards, and there has been also some scary moments, but we try to do it as safely as we can while having fun. So maybe sometimes you need the kind of a bit of the adrenaline, so there has to be the fine limit when you're kind of in between if it's safe or not, but it's still safe.
Yeah. And final thing, is there anything else to conquer? Anything that you've, like, massive goals or anything that you feel like you need to conquer out there in the water yet?
Let's see. I'm trying to do some kind of bigger goal every 2 years, and I just had my last goal this winter, so I'm planning for the next one. It's most likely swimming somewhere where it's big current or something more challenging with the cold swimming. But let's see what it has, because there are so many places which has not yet been discovered. So we keep it as a secret for myself as well.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much for chatting. It's been quite an experience to listen to this extreme sport, and good luck to you in all your endeavors and all your goals. And for all the listeners out there, how can they find you? How can they follow you? And where can they do all that good stuff?
I'm most active in Instagram, and also sometimes doing some fun TikToks, and with Elina Mäkinen. If you're doing ice bathing or ice swimming, so most likely somewhere abroad in the competitions or ice bathing events.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate your time, and thanks for being on Living in Liquid.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Living in Liquid. I'm your host, Jamie Mitchell. This episode was produced by Stacey Piggott. Thank you to the Australian band The Drones for our epic intro music. Please don't forget to follow or subscribe. We'll see you next week.